even though we don't have everybody here, I know Paul's not going to be here tonight, so anyway, a lot of this is just for informational purposes anyway. So let's just start right off with the Carnegie Museum. And Brittany's here, and Jason's here, and so...
So I'm kind of going to do a little bit of a recap of where we've been and where we're going. So I'm Brittany Tiller, and I'm the president of the Carnegie Museum Foundation. So we're the 501c3 that helps several historical nonprofits here in town, but kind of our main focus is the Carnegie Historical Museum and helping with capital projects. So just as a kind of a reminder and a refresher, we are just wrapping up our Carnegie Capital campaign. So this started all the way back in 2018, where we had a structural analysis of the building. And they said it's a very structurally sound building, but it does have some exterior renovations that need to happen. And so with the help of the city and lots of generous donors from our community, we have been able to do that. So that was tuck pointing, new windows, the front stair repair, parapet repair, which is that kind of border around the top of the building, and then the stabilization of the southwest corner. And so that I'm going to kind of remind you on that because it's going to tie into what I'm talking about tonight. So back in the 1930s, the southwest corner of the building was sinking. And that's when they decided to take the slate roof off at that time because they felt like it was really heavy and maybe leading to that sinking. And then they also did something along the lines of like injecting cement into that corner. And we're not exactly sure what they did, but it worked. And in that structural analysis in 2018, they said, whatever it was, they did a great job. But what was happening was there was, some cracking and stuff from the brick. And so we put tie rods in and stabilized that and did brick repair. So we're wrapping that up. We have blinds going in now. And then once that's done, that portion of the project is all done and it's all buttoned up. So in that process, we've had a lot of people. The Carnegie Museum has just been bustling with people and projects. And one of the questions that we've been asked is, could we return, kind of like the courthouse had the historic roof put back on, could the Carnegie have the historic roof put back on? So we reached out to Klingner, which is the engineering firm we've used in the past, and the city's got a great relationship with them. And the structural engineer said, yes, you actually could put they recommended it would look like slate, but it wouldn't be slate. So it would be a lighter version of that, but that the building is sound and could have that done. And then while they were there, they also did what's called an existing conditions report. So they looked at the interior of the building and they, is there enough egress in the event of a fire? Where do we put ADA accessible bathrooms? What's the HVAC system, electrical, all of those things. So they were really looking at the interior of the building and how that looks. And then as we approached this, we were approaching it with a very long-term view. So let's say down the road in 50 years or however far you want to look down the road, if this building is occupied only by the museum, what could that look like? And so they were trying to kind of answer some of those questions. And so they came back with a great report. And what I'm here to ask you tonight is kind of to get your feedback and hopefully a stamp of approval for us to begin fundraising for phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 is putting a historic recreation of the roof back on, so we get that Romanesque architecture look back. And then what they called phase 2 is actually an addition on the north side of the building. It would be 30 feet by 30 feet, and it would be connected by a small hallway, so it wouldn't be 30 feet up against the building, if that makes sense. There'd be some room in there. But that addition would contain ADA accessible bathrooms for each floor. It would have a stairwell, which would be a compliant a fire escape that would kind of fit with code better. And then long term, it would have an elevator shaft, but they're not recommending actually moving the elevator there yet, just having a shaft, because the current elevator is good for now, but looking long term, it really isn't quite large enough to hold the elevator. Yes.
So there's a parking lot there, isn't there?
No, if you look there, there is actually green space, mowed grass there between the building and an alley.
And that's where it'll go.
Yes. Yep. I kind of had the same thought when they first told me. I'm like, how 30 by 30? But after I looked at it on site, it does, that lay makes a lot more sense. So that's their suggestion, and then that addition would actually allow the elevator eventually to go all the way up and have an access to the attic. And the attic was historically storage. And so they were saying, light storage, don't be putting heavy things up there, but it would be able to have storage up there as well. So the stairwell would go up to that area as well.
Into that area that usually if you're in the museum part, you kind of go up a little stairs from where that little bathroom.
So that's the mezzanine area. Yep.
Right.
So this actually, so when you put the historic roof back on, it actually creates the attic again. So there is no attic now. But the reason they're suggesting having that addition where it is because then you would have access to that mezzanine. Right now that's not accessible at all.
Right.
To the elevator or anything. So that's why they picked that location.
So this is a historic building, I presume it's registered?
Yes.
And so none of this would compromise that registration?
No, and that's really why they are suggesting having the bathrooms in an addition, because there was no indoor plumbing when they built the building. So it really helps keep the historic integrity of the building, and their addition would be, would blend, and it'd be kind of hidden as it sits back there a little bit. So that was their goal, and our goal as well. So yeah, what I'm really, so we met last week with Doug, or at some point a few days ago, with Connie and Doug and Melanie, and just kind of were sharing this, and what we're really looking to do is just begin fundraising. This is, the roof is about $500,000, and the addition is about another $1.5 to $2 million. So we're talking about a lot of money and a long process, but what we'd like to do is begin fundraising locally, get some match dollars, and then we can start pursuing grants and then use the local donations as our matching funds for grants. So don't expect anything to happen, I would say, for probably at least the next 5 years. So this is really just the beginning process of it all.
I'm sorry, maybe you said this and I spaced out. The condition of the current roof,
Yeah.
How long is it looking like it'll last at this point? Do we know?
And Melanie might be
you say
able
that?
to, or Jason might be able to answer this better. Do you have a good answer?
I don't have a good answer. So there were some leaks.
That you repaired in this fiscal year?
Yeah, that we repaired in this fiscal year. I'm like, did it happen this year? Did it happen last year? But that's a great answer. We repaired it in this fiscal year. And then with finishing the tuck pointing of the
Southwest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The parapets, that finished up the known leaks, but and it's in the capital improvements plan, the age of them. I mean, they're within 5 years of needing replacement because they're at that 20-year age.
It seems like it's just like patch it and repair, patch it. It was never intended to be a flat roof. Historically it was that angle
Right.
roof. So hopefully it would address that issue as well. And the reason that we wanted to tackle phase 1 and 2, originally we thought, well, a new roof is pretty obtainable, $500,000, that's not too bad. But we could do that, we could just do that, but then when you add the addition, you would be attaching it to that roof. And it seemed to make more sense once you have a crew mobilized to do it, to just do it all in one shot, was our kind of thought.
The only public bathrooms there right now are in the basement, right?
Yeah, so
Is there anything on the Indian Hills level? No.
there is not, and there's
Yeah.
a small one up on the top floor, but
It's not functional.
yeah, it's not functioning. So yeah, the only
Got it.
bathrooms
Okay.
are on that bottom level.
And the elevator, can it hold a gurney for somebody who has a medical emergency? Is it big enough?
I don't think so.
Supposed to be.
I don't think so either.
No, because it's not.
It's hard to pick it
I mean,
up.
I was gonna say it's
Yeah.
like 6.
It's pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of,
And that's why they were recommending putting that elevator shaft in, because it doesn't, it meets code, it doesn't break code, but long-term, it would be best to have a larger elevator shaft. And like I said, that gets every floor access there, whereas the current elevator can't do that.
yeah, gotcha.
So I take it you're gonna knock a window out and put the access to the elevator.
Yeah, so they have it lined up. It actually works out pretty well that we can use a window for each access is what they were hoping to do on that, for that like hallway area.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I want to ask about
So-
the architecture.
And I was out making copies, so she already said this. It's kind of always been our policy, and we're gonna look to add it to the financial policy. So it's actually in writing is that when the foundations are doing improvements to city policy or city property, that we get council permission for them to continue. So that's why she's presenting, and so we don't have a quorum yet. But maybe in council meeting we can, they can get some permission to move forward with fundraising on those projects, or move it to, if you want to look at the report, however you want to move forward. But that's the intent of tonight's presentation, is to get that permission to move forward with these projects, since it is, you know, an outside entity doing work on city property.
And just so I clarify what your ask is just to have permission to begin those conversations for the fundraising, right?
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
with the intention that as we keep going, you'll keep coming back to council as you go each stage for further.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't, we did reach out to Klingner to see what some renderings would cost, just to help people visualize, what it would look like, and then we call them Melanie's probably like, that isn't even a thing, but like fundraising cost estimates. We don't need super hard numbers, but we need some ballparks on that, just to clarify that. So we really just wanted it to be where if you see some, content from a fundraising campaign, you're not going, oh, wait, what are they doing on the city's property? And so you're aware of what's going on. Right. And then once the funding is there, then we'll circle back and get some much more detailed, blueprints and all that sort of thing, and then revisit it at that point.
Okay. So Brittany, we'll make sure we get that on next council meeting, if that works for you.
Which would be the 27th.
To come back and present to the full
Yeah,
council?
we'll put it as an action item on the council.
Okay,
I don't think you'd have to come.
Okay.
But we'd just make an action
Yeah.
item.
perfect. That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, she might want to be here because, again,
Oh yeah.
we don't have everybody here. So hopefully you can come. Okay, comp plan. This update, this spreadsheet that Melanie works on, we usually get in the fall work session, but we just had too many other things, and so we're finally getting around to it. And I know I've got a couple things that I'll shoot over to Melanie to add, but we wanted you guys to have eyes on it to see if you had any questions. Certainly if you have worked on something that you don't see there, let Melanie know, we can add things. So anybody have any questions on this particular thing? Melanie, do you want to speak to anything in particular?
So I did bold a couple items, not to be confused with some of the headings on there, as some possible action items, maybe kind of a jumping off point, because there's some items that have been in limbo for a while. Just even on the first page, the policy is consider incorporating energy efficiency and long life cycle construction methods and technologies. And so then in bold, under the comments and update, I said possible next action item, conduct facility assessments on all city buildings. In the capital improvements plan, I said We're looking at a lot of HVAC roof repairs on several city buildings over the next 5 years. So maybe that's a smaller action item that we can take towards these larger goals. Later on, I know there's a couple other pieces, particularly related to some zoning issues, that I say, you know, is this really a concern? We need to identify the concern or mark it as complete, because I'm not aware of anything. So if there's still something to do, we'll be happy to do it. But if not, then let's mark it complete. So those were just I made them bold in the comments to kind of make them stand out. And then otherwise, the rest is just kind of regular updates.
Okay. Melanie, I was just gonna point out on page 6, P1, where we talk about preserve areas with significant tree cover throughout the planning area as redevelopment occurs. I thought we could add that in this last year from 20 toward 25, the Arbor Committee has planted 82 trees.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit further update on that. And
Well, we planted trees the year before, so.
yeah. On P2, down under G3, where we're encouraging energy savings, just so you know, and you can decide whether you want to put that in there, but I did talk to Grow Fairfield about the Sunrise Trail development, if we might consider either well, I first brought up solar, and then Ed brought up geothermal, so I think they are exploring that. One of the renderings I saw did have some solar panels on it, so it may be that they might offer that as an option for a home builder there. So anyway, so that was kind of, at least it was discussed, and we're trying to be forward thinking about that.
Yeah, well, and though to that point, that's some of my comments is, at this time, our ordinance isn't very restrictive on some of these goals. So maybe these are community goals, but there's nothing the city's currently doing that's prohibiting this stuff.
Yeah.
At least not from a code standpoint. So I'm not exactly sure where the city falls into this, but to that point, yeah, Grow Fairfield might be doing some great things, but is there anything necessarily for the city to change?
Yeah.
And so those are, so I agree with you on that point, that's a great thing to add in there, but that's kind of where some of my comments come in other places.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, study this, and if you've got comments, please, let one of us know, or Melanie, and if you've got anything to add or want to move forward on something.
Can we get hard copies, put in our mailboxes?
Sure. You want this copy? I think I have another one. I printed that one off today, so.
Thank you.
Yep. Alrighty. The next two things, I guess, I assume somebody's going to lead this. Open meeting laws.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, thank you, Ms. Mellon.
There's your copies.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. So,
He's not here anyway.
Yeah.
It's thrown on the floor.
so the Iowa legislature has revisited the open meetings law, and so now you have some documentation that they have increased the fines if we violate open meetings law from $500 to $2,500 to $5,000 to $12,500. And we want to be mindful as a governing body that, us as administration, making sure that we're, posting our meetings as we should be, but also that council is careful that they're not having serial communications via emails, serial phone calls, or meeting at the coffee shop and, speaking business and what have you, that we just need to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do, because it looks like the legislature is very serious about making sure that we're following the rules, and we wanted to bring that to your attention since that has just been passed and signed by the governor.
Thank you.
I do have a question about open meetings laws, which you probably can't answer. But the state legislature up in Des Moines does do a thing they call caucusing, where Republican representatives or senators and the Democrats will each go into private rooms behind closed doors and just discuss political strategy. They're also governed by open meetings laws, right?
Yes.
You have any idea how that's legal?
That'd be, and of course we have an attorney sitting right there
Right.
that would have more insight than I would, but most likely that would be very much like our closed sessions, or it would be very much like our committees. But we do publish those.
We publish the committees, yeah.
Yeah.
And
but-
of course, the closed sessions are.
That's not a legitimate reason for a closed session.
Yeah, closed sessions have a specific.
But I asked Jeff
reasons.
Shipley this question, and he didn't know the answer. And I also asked the attorney for League of Cities, and she didn't know the answer.
Right.
So nobody knows.
It's been that way for 50 years.
Yeah.
Seriously, the open meetings law is as old as that habit. Nobody knows the answer.
And local municipal governments don't caucus.
Yeah. Well, I know. I just.
But no, it's a good question, because you're right.
In the open meetings law, there's no exemption for caucusing.
So maybe that's a question that we could actually ask maybe the bigger law
Nobody,
firms.
to answer your question, nobody's pushed back on them hard
Right.
enough.
That's probably it. That's probably it.
So, but it's a good question, and it's an
The
interesting
U.S.
one.
Congress does the same thing.
Yeah. Although federal government's probably not got open meetings laws.
They don't, they should.
Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting question that we'll have to ponder some more.
Okay.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay.
Right-of-way ordinance?
So Doug Flournoy asked for this to be on. I did bring some information. I'm not exactly sure what he wants to talk about, so that's why I'm hanging out up here.
Oh, now I remember talking to you about this. So this right-of-way ordinance was considered quite a few years ago,
2020.
25 years ago, and it never, it had to deal with parking and doing work in the right-of-way, if I remember correctly. So it never went anywhere because a permit structure was never created to allow the ordinance to be functional. So I was going to ask if we could have that on the agenda sometime to pursue that and get that ordinance on the books.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That is the facts of the situation.
Yeah. Was never published.
So-
Correct. From your perspective, Melanie, what do we need to do in order to really enforce that ordinance and follow it? Maybe
So-
the chief has some,
Yeah.
as he walks out.
He's like, I'm too close to retirement. I'm done.
I don't want to talk about that.
Well, we might want to review the ordinance, see if it's up to date.
Yeah, and there's that. So, and we can certainly send it around. The ordinance number was 1193. The last reading was, I believe, August of 2020. I'm not sure if it was the first or the second meeting in August. Most of the items that are on there are pretty standard. They're actually already in our code. We're already enforcing. You can't park on a crosswalk. Can't park on a sidewalk. You can't park in front of a driveway. You can't park in front of a hydrant. You can't park in front of the fire station. You can't park on the railroad tracks. Those types of things that we're already enforcing. You can't park in a handicapped parking spot without this sticker. The crux of the issue was the first one that was added to it, and that is, and it's actually in our code already, we're just not enforcing it, and that is not parking in the area between the lot line and the edge of the street, in the area not covered by sidewalk, lying between the lot line and the edge of the street or curb, where curb has been established. And so some of the issues that came up with that is we don't have anything in our code that tells people they can't cut the curb. So if somebody wanted to just cut the curb and destroy our drainage, they could do that so that they could park there. I have a big concern with the cost of our streets and our utilities. If people are parking there and getting that permitting process, or denying those permits, so that we don't have that increased cost. But then kind of the other thing that kind of got everyone hung up is the amount of people that are already parking there, particularly in the business district. I think we were just looking at, the businesses just around City Hall, Adela's, at the time there was Dachshund, it's now Wonders Hall. Just those were two places that had half a dozen parking places in the right of way that would not have parking if we didn't allow parking. Our own library has parking in the right of way. So it got to be the point where it was like, oh, there's a lot more exceptions to the rule than places following the rule. So those were some of the hurdles that started to come up with public safety. And then I think Public Safety Committee switched, and then it stopped getting discussed. So, and I was okay with it. Something else came up, and we stopped talking about it. But I think those were the hurdles. Anyway,
It does seem like public safety maybe needs to really take it up again.
Well, I don't mind people parking in the right of way if they have a legitimate looking driveway and the curb is okay for drainage, but a lot of them aren't that way. They're just thrown up there with dirt or gravel, railroad ties at the front, and the curb has just been cut and left the way it is. So I think we need to go back and, it'll beautify the city.
Okay. Okay. Well, why don't we, during the mayor's report, we can bring that back up and move it to,
Send it to
if you want to, move it to safety. Okay, so let's just take a 1-minute break. And then we'll come back for the council meeting.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Do you need to, Doug?
No.
I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Toohill,
Here.
Rowe,
Here.
Ham. Here. Flournoy.
Here.
Great, thank you. Okay, so our first order of business is our swearing in of our newest officer, Mr. Rambo. The four-legged variety.
Make sure the dog does a sweep.
Sorry?
Make sure the dog does a sweep. Okay.
do you want us? Just up front.
Sweep of the-
Will the camera be able to see him? Is he too low?
As long as you stand right where they're at. I can see the dog.
Hey, Rambo.
We could have the two Dougs lift us.
Good,
Raise your
good
right
boy.
paw.
Not picking up the
Can he
dog.
sit and pay attention? Can he talk? Can he
Lift him
speak?
up.
Oh,
He's checking it.
Okay, here you go, Rambo. This is your oath of office. I, Rambo, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability, discharge all the duties of a canine in the city of Fairfield, now is or hereafter inspired by law. Can he shake on that?
Mark 3 times.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can say, you agree with that?
Yes.
For him.
Yeah. Yep.
So can you give us a little detail about Rambo?
Yeah, so he just turned 1. May 1st, he turned 1. He obviously is very excited. He still has, puppy brain. Oh, come on, sit down. So, he loves to play with his working balls.
Yeah.
He loves going to the dog park. I mean, he loves to work, and he gives really good hugs. He jumps up and gives everyone hugs.
Gets our blood pressure down.
Yep. So, yes,
He's a good therapy dog for all the police officers.
No, yeah. He's very, very lovey. So he loves everyone, and
So what is he trained to do?
so he's trained in apprehension and narcotics and tracking. So we track for, people that like run off on us, people like missing people with like Alzheimer's. If they go missing, he can track for them. And then he's trained in narcotics, so he can search houses and cars for narcotics, and then apprehension again if someone were to like foot bail or anything like that, he can apprehend them for me. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Well, thank you, and we're glad you're here, and we're glad we got a new team member.
Thank you.
Great job. Thanks.
Walk the crap.
Doesn't want to go back to work. Thanks.
Okay. So that was a first.
Indeed. It's a good first.
Yeah, it's a good first. All righty. So let's go to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the April 28th, 2025 council meeting. Approval of the minutes of the May 5th, 2025 special council meeting. Approval of the May 9th, 2025 payroll in the amount of $146,749.41. Acceptance of personnel committee minutes. Consent of park use permit for Fairfield Pride Committee. That is a noise exemption. Resolution of employment in the Park and Recreation Department. Resolution of employment in the Utility Administrative Department. Resolution of employment in the Streets Department. Approval of liquor license for Crown Liquor Tobacco and G-Mart. Approval of ACH payment to Department of Revenue in the amount of $11,931.20. Approval of total claims in the amount of $318,581.91. And we did not have any claims over $75,000.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Toohill. Any discussion?
I did review the claims and they all, as usual, seemed in order. So
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes?
Rowe.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. That was approved unanimously. Okay. So we have 4 items for public appearances. We would like to keep these to 3 minutes if possible. I know that's not a lot of time, but we have quite a bit on our agenda, so the first one is Shawn Peck, Greater Jefferson County Fair. Are you here?
Hi, Shawn Peck, Greater Jefferson County Fair Board member. Request, and also chair of the parade committee, so request to have a parade as we have done in the past. You have the map there in your book, or your packet, but it's the same as last year's map. High school up to the square, back on Briggs.
Okay, great.
Make the motion that we approve the plan for the fair parade.
Okay, moved by Flournoy. Is there a second? Second by Ham. Any questions? Now, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes?
Toohill,
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Anyone?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Terry.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome, thank
Hope you
you.
have a great parade.
You bet, we will.
Matt Nelson, Evergreen Cemetery.
So Matt Nelson, Evergreen Cemetery. I'm gonna start, if I could, I'll pass around our brochures that we had created. I don't know if you guys have seen those for our endowment fund. And I might just pass around 2 sets of pictures that you can kind of look at as I'm talking. Pass those. Just kind of some of the improvements we've done here recently. So, as you know, Evergreen Cemetery started in 1870, so we're in our 155th year. To date, I believe we are the second oldest entity in Jefferson County now. I think we're second only to Jefferson County Mutual, just by 5 years. I think we are the last lot owner, perpetual care cemetery left. Mount Pleasant, Washington, Ottumwa, they've all gone from perpetual care cemeteries to city-owned cemeteries. So we're still proud to be one of the last ones hanging in there. Anybody that doesn't know, a perpetual care cemetery is one that for every lot sale I make, 20% of that sale goes into our perpetual care account. So there's always something there. I think our account's 300 some thousand. It's not invested money though. It's just all we get is like the interest of it. So we barely get enough off of it for the for our insurance pretty much for the year. Including the city portion we mow, it's about 38 acres. I'd say the city is about 15% of what all that we take care of. By the end of this week, there are 11,179 of Fairfield's residents that we have buried there to this point, and so we're taking care of a lot more than even live in the city anymore. As you know, we've started the endowment fund, and to date we have raised $565,564, which generated us about $20,000 of revenue this year, which is it's not a lot. It's a start. We got to start somewhere. So and with that 20,000, the picture I sent around, so we finally started resetting some stones. We reset, I believe there was 4 of them, and then we did one other disinterment so I could put in M Street. So we spent about $6,000 there, and then we'll spend, I would assume, around $10,000 putting in M Street, which is our new proposed street, the east side. And feel free, any questions while I'm talking. I know I don't have a lot of time here, but if you have any questions while I'm talking, if anything, feel free to ask.
What's the amount of your annual budget?
The amount of our annual budget. So what we spend in a year's time, I don't have that exact number for you. I had somebody else ask me a while ago, what do you budget for this? What do you budget for that? I say, we don't spend money. I don't have a budget. We absolutely don't spend money unless you have to have it. And that's the only reason Evergreen has lasted as long as we have, just because we don't have a set budget, because we just plain and simply don't spend money unless we have to.
So the biggest part of your budget would be your labor.
Yeah, payroll.
Correct?
I mean, payroll is obviously the biggest, because other than that, now like this year, we have to replace the backhoe this year, and and that's in the works, and it's going to happen. It's going to be the whole project's gonna be close to 100 grand, because we have to do a small addition to the building to fit the new piece of equipment in. They don't make any equipment that even fit in the building. The building was actually built way too short. We've had to adjust the last backhoe just to get it in. So this year is gonna be kind of a little stressful on that part as far as paying for it, but to answer your question, we actually don't have we don't budget this for that or budget this for that. We just, quite honestly, don't spend money, unless it's necessary. Which is because we haven't had the money over the years to do that kind of stuff. Like I say, with the endowment, with different pools of money that we're starting to, that's where I'm wanting to start taking on these projects that have been neglected for the last 8 years. Of those, projects, I do have a lot of long-term projects that, the streets haven't been done since the 70s, at which time I believe the city did help us with that at that time. There's about $1 million worth of resets of stone that have to be done in time. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember where the old abbey used to stand. It was an above ground, huge mausoleum that stood out by Kirkwood. There's about a $10,000 project there where they never did any work, and they just pretty much tore it down, and they won't even grow weeds right at the moment. But before I can sell space in that area, it's got to be completely revamped.
Brings up another question.
Sure.
How are your sales going?
Lot sales? Or
Because
or
people are
donation?
switching to crematorium, being cremated rather than buried. I'm just wondering
Yeah,
how the future looks.
The future, I say we're probably easily 60-40, 60% cremation, 40% full burial. But we've just had to adjust cost-wise to account for that. We've raised cremation, cost for cremation right now is $550, and then if they do the tent, that makes it about $850, to where a full burial is $900, and that includes tent. So they're almost apples to apples now anyway, if they want the tent, that we've just had to.
But some people choose to have their cremated remains buried in a lot.
Yeah, I mean, all the ones we buried are buried, so they have to purchase space. And,
Okay.
Lot sales are good. Since we actually had a really good year last year with lot sales, and I think all of the attention we've been getting in the newspaper, doing the endowment, people are noticing that, and they think, we're all heading in the right direction, so their local residents are wanting to buy more space there than what they were for a period. They're pretty optimistic about the cemetery, so lot sales are good. And lot sales can make up the difference between making money one year and not. If you sell 50 spaces, they average probably $900 a space. I mean, you're talking several thousands of dollars. But if you have a down year where you only sell 5 or 6, well, you can see there's quite a drastic, income difference there. Because that is how most of the money comes in, is lot sales and burials. And
When was the last time you increased your rates for lot sales?
we just did here this last year.
$900 is pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, no, like I said, we went up, we bumped them up, most of them up 100. We've looked at all the, 50-mile radius. We've looked at Mount Pleasant. We've looked at Washington. We've looked everywhere. And the worst part is you can still get free space in Jefferson County in some little small cemeteries. The only difference is, those aren't well-maintained cemeteries, but you can actually still get free space. So you can actually price yourself out of business too. But no, like I say, we always have to keep looking about raising our rates. But like I said, that's the reason people keep buying space, is because every time everybody comes, like around Memorial Day, they say, Evergreen's the best. I mean, it looks better than any other cemetery out there. We take a lot of pride in that.
I'm curious,
Mhm.
on the stone repair, so Evergreen assumes responsibility for the stones once
Nope.
they're set?
Nope, like I say, technically it is the family's responsibility, but Evergreen has been using that excuse for the last 100 years. It's their responsibility, they'll take care of it. They don't take care of it. And a lot of those families are gone. I mean, you can't get blood out of a turnip.
Yep.
So you can only use that excuse for so many years before it becomes a community problem, really. And not only that, we want them taken care of because it increases your mowing time by double. You'd end up trimming around twice as much because it's laid out on the ground. It just makes everything way more labor intensive.
I guess, would it be more, so if you have a bunch of examples to that effect,
Because you said it's going to be how much? $1 million
I
to
imagine
reset?
there's $1 million worth
all
of
the stones?
resets there.
So if there's so much stone reset that needs to happen, and there aren't families around here that visit them or go out there, why not just remove the stone that has fallen and dispose of it, rather than take the
Well,
time to
because
reset it?
It would still be their property. I would assume it would still be their property, their family property, and I would imagine we would catch holy hell if we did that. Would be my guess.
Something to consider, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and
So my family, my in-laws, they had stones in Des Moines. They had family members buried there. The stones were settling into the ground. You could barely see them any longer.
Right.
And they had to pay to have
Right.
them excavated and redone. They won't just do it for free. They will just
Right.
continue to let
Right.
it settle into the ground.
right, and I totally get that. Like I say, the problem is, I feel like Evergreen is just, they've used these excuses over the years to just get by of doing nothing. And I'm not the type that likes to stand around and just do nothing. Let's
Sure.
do something.
Yep.
So even if we only do 5 a year, I mean, it'll take us 100 years to do it, but eventually we'll get it done. And, we can always apply, we always hit up the Greater Jefferson County Foundation for stuff like that. They're very good about giving money to that kind of stuff. We usually have to get mowers and stuff for that, but in an off year, we could ask them for money for stuff like that. So it's not like it's just all of our money, but like I said, I felt like we had to start somewhere.
Sure.
And not only that, the ones that are even up, but they're leaning like this, are quite dangerous. We had a lady last year around Memorial Day. She comes out, her own stone, she puts her hand on it, it falls over, and she goes over with it. Now, who's liable? I mean, so we've got to take responsibility for this kind of stuff. Now, do I want to go out and borrow $1 million to do all these ones? No. But if we could do $10,000 a year, I mean, and actually, the city used to pay us back in the mid-90s, the city used to pay us to reset stones in the city for you guys. I think they'd usually pick out 5 or 6 a year, and we would go pull the old foundations and dig new ones, and that was just another way of us for getting money from the city at that time.
But the bulk that probably need to be replaced are in the old city portion.
No, surprisingly not. Like those pictures that I sent around on the, I don't know where
Just the larger sheets.
the larger
They're over
sheets.
here.
That is actually clear out on in one of the newer parts, clear to the east end. And that's why I kind of started there, because that's the newer ones. It's in a very high traffic area, and all I get is people saying, "Why can't something be done about these stones?"
Yeah.
And so that's why we started there. And like I said, the other thing is that's going to be another big cost. I haven't had a full-time assistant since we started, which is going to add another, minimum 40 to 50,000 someday that we're going to have to do just so I can take a day off. And so if anything happens to me, that we have somebody following up.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I've used up most of my time. Is there any other questions?
I just want to thank you for all your work. Oh, go ahead.
No, and one thing, I would encourage you, seriously, come out to the cemetery and let me take you for a tour. Let's go for a walking tour. I think you would all benefit from it. To actually, I can sit here and tell you till I'm blue in the face, but till you actually come out and see it and actually take a walking tour, and I'd love to do that. Then maybe you'd have some good ideas for us. So I'd encourage everybody to come out.
Yeah. And want to encourage the community, if you got a passion for replacing stones, to help out and help out the endowment fund, because I think that'll really make a big difference.
Oh, and by doing these projects, nobody wants their donations to go to payroll. They have to see something for their money, and by doing these different projects, we're going to get more and more money, for sure.
Yeah, great. Thank you for
right.
giving the council an update.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ray Griffin. Ray, do you want to talk a little bit about, what happened while you're here? Talk about the incident that you...
About what?
About the incident that you had regarding the dogs.
Okay. Well, I'm not here. We have a city code. I just wanted a little clarity maybe on it. It's very well written, no problems with it. It's the enforcement of it. But we had, in a period of probably 5 weeks, the police would call down on 3rd Street for about, they were there for some pit bulls or dogs running loose. And the one dog got out and he grabbed the little kid's shirt and grabbed his pants and ripped it. The other one, Yvonne Voorhees, across the street, was on the patio dogs got loose again, they came over, they tried to get the little dog went under a chair, and they kept going, they bumped and bruised their leg and stuff like that, you know. So, and there's probably, they've been loose, I would say probably 5 times in 4 or 5 weeks. Police are always called, and they're very good about responding. You know, hands up. But when you see them, they say, our hands are tied. Look at this. This is city code. I mean, how many pages there, and it's double-sided. Why is their hands tied? I don't think we need a dog catcher or, you know, something like that. But I think it's more responsibility to the owner. When you're called 5 times, we have it on the books here, they can get fined up to $50 or something like that.
Correct.
It's not the dog's fault. Most dogs are going to get loose now and then, you know, and it's not their fault that they're out there. Just look for something different to do, you know. But I think after 5 times, someone should, you know, instead of listening to their sob story, and like I say, the police are very good about it, and they said, you know, our hands are kind of tied. But we do have a big ordinance here. It's all written very well. So I just want to go real quick here, and it just says, you know, dogs should be permitted to run loose on there, and there should be a fine of at least $50. And it says that there should be a board that consists of 5 members in the city code here. I don't know if you have one or not.
It's animal control board.
Dogs found at large following a 3rd conviction, running at large. It's a civil infraction. It can be deemed a public nuisance, you know. And last but not least, this is the one I like. If a dog has attacked any domestic animal or fowl on at least 2 separate occasions within 24-month period. So the first time he maims him, the second time he gets his eye out, you got to wait till that second time till he does anything to the dog next door or something like that. I think
That's what it says.
Once is enough. And I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to keep it short. I just think there should be some type of the penalty to the owner. You know, I mean, after a couple times, come on, keep your dogs in, you know. And, so I guess, why do we pay a registration fee? What do you get for it? What do you get for a registration fee? You don't get anything.
You get a record.
Yeah.
Dog's vaccinated, you know who owns it. That's about the extent of the cost of the paperwork that's involved.
Yeah, so really, actually, I mean, there isn't much that you get. I mean, any protection for your property or anything like that, you know. I mean, it says in the code there is, and it's quite extensive. It's a good code. I just think sometimes, maybe after 3-4 times, maybe the owner needs a little.
So, quick question for Chief. When they go to the same house for a loose dog, does the officer know that this is the 2nd, 3rd, 4th time?
Well, they're usually different officers come, you know, different.
Right, but is there a way for them to
Sure.
find out quickly whether this owner has been an offender multiple times?
We keep track in our computer system. They have access to it. Dispatch will let them know.
Good.
It's like any city ordinance or state law. They get warnings the first time, and if it doesn't correct, and I think this case, the officer has gone back and cited this person because of the previous warnings doesn't seem to be working, so they issued a citation this time.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay.
No, I would say, I'm just curious on it, you know, I mean, no one has said anything about, lady, she's moving, you know, moving her and the dogs are getting out of there. It's just, you're gonna find a dog running loose now and then, and most of them are playful and they're good, nice dogs, but when you get the pit bulls running around, sometimes, not that they're vicious, it's the way that they're raised and stuff like that, I can see. But after they've attacked a little kid, you know, I mean, more or less ripped his clothes and come over and tried to.
And it's important for that person, or like a parent, to report that to the police,
Yeah,
so
they
it gets
did.
on the record.
They did.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's all been reported.
Good.
So I just thought, I'd just bring it up here and.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you, Ray.
One more
Appreciate it.
thing, Ray. Our ordinance does punish people for being what they call irresponsible
Yes.
animal owners.
Yes.
They got to have basically a 3rd conviction for a dog at large or something else the dog did.
Right.
And then they don't get a license for 3 years. So they're legally not entitled to have that pet anymore. There's other things in there you pointed out as far as the 2-bite rules and that kind of thing that will get rid of the dog theoretically, except, as you mentioned, we have a board, and we had 6 months of hearings on that 10 or 12 page animal ordinance.
Great.
Yeah, we have people on both sides of the fence on this, that some folks wanted to have an animal control review board that was a place to appeal if their dog was provoked into attacking somebody. And we do have occasional use of the animal control review board. But the other things in there that take off after a certain number of violations, they do get enforced. It's just right now, I know in the next 2 months, that there will be 2 trials up in the magistrate court of people that are disputing that their dogs could have done that. One's an attack on a group of chickens, so you just, it keeps on rolling.
I think it's a good ordinance, well-written, everything. I just think that maybe you ought to enforce it a little more. Maybe, 3 times you're down there at the same house, dogs are running loose and everything. Let the owner know that it's not the dog's fault. It's the owner's fault. Okay, thank you.
It is a owner responsibility issue, I do believe. I agree with that we do need some better care of our animals and keeping them in check. Okay, next, Tom Terrien. Hey, Tom. Again, not to hurry you, but we would like to have a discussion.
I understand.
Quickly.
This is something that needs to be said. I'm representing the Walton Lake residents at Walton Lake regarding this Causeway issue that you guys have approved. It's prompted by the upcoming start to the draining the lake that is in June. And there's been no formal notice that was given to any of the landowners around the lake. We request at this time a stay of execution because complete knowledge was not given to the council at large to make intelligent decisions representing the lake and the impact that it has on the community members that are living around it, including the golfers. The residents' attempt, my attempt was, I contacted the city to, once I heard that the bridge was going to be replaced. The existing golf cart bridge, and the concern was received by both the city engineer and Ward 1 in September and October of 2024. The concern included alternative info on a potential bridge to replace the existing one. City was advised of the bridge company with some pricing and a bridge they could inspect locally. City's representative's response was appreciated. The info was added and forwarded to the appropriate departments for consideration. They said they had no idea what they were going to do at that time, and they'd keep me posted. That's the last I've heard from them. The bridge company has no records, and I contacted the bridge company to see if they had any records to see if you could get some pricing from them as an alternative to what you guys decided. There was no one contacted them from what they could find, and there was no request from the council here to go and inspect the bridge that was here locally. I have you could turn that on, you can kind of show the bridge that we're talking about. The resulting decision was you replace the golf cart bridge with a Causeway culvert to begin June of 2025. Thereby essentially dividing the lake into 2 parts. Okay. Timing to drain the lake in June, these are the impacts of the decision. In the past, this has created unpleasant odors when you drain the lake from dead fish, along with the exposed mud's foul smell. Plus, the loss of the quiet enjoyment. We, as residents out there, we really have made this a beautiful, beautiful place. It's a gem in the city of Fairfield. Have you folks been out, have you spent time out on Walton Lake at all? Sure. I mean, it broke my heart that you didn't include us as far as just when you brought this decision in front of the board. The expense, the city of residents are paying for an limited access causeway right now, this is the facts, that is only open to members and guests of Walton Lake Club for the golf carts and pedestrian traffic. Fisherman's Access, they're taxpayers too, and they will lose the ability to access the entire city lake from the existing parking lot that the city has provided. The Walton residents, the golf club members, I have multiple decisions and multiple signatures on this. Everyone of the landowners have signed this concern. We would like to have, we propose that you just table draining the lake until you have all the facts. What we want to do is find the most cost-effective solutions. And in fairness to the council, I know our representatives have our interests at heart. And once you see all of the facts, I'm sure you'll vote in accordance with that. And you know, we've invested millions of dollars in this community. And you guys started it by giving us the opportunity to buy lots. And we bought our lot back in 2004. We have over a $500,000 home that we built. One next door is over $500,000. But it's really, it's reflects the beauty of that area. And what broke my heart is we got no notice of this from you folks. And in an hour, what I did then was I dug into this a little bit more, and I called the bridge company back after I saw what you guys were looking to spend. In an hour of inquiry, I discovered that the company had a bridge, this is kind of an example of that would span the distance required with a 9,000-pound load capacity. I then asked who they had done business with. The answer left me speechless. One of their larger customers is the Iowa DNR, along with multiple state DNRs, state parks, and numerous states across the country. They sent me a 15-page engineering copy of what this bridge is capable of. I think when you saw that Ford F-150 go across it, you didn't see any give. But the interesting thing is there's only 6 inches of support on either side. It's made out of aluminum. It lasts a lifetime, and it's within 2 months it can be up and spanning that distance. I also checked with the bridge abutment where you could have, you need abutments on either side. I talked to a contractor. They gave me the quotes, and I left them in the packet with this disclosure that I left. And that ensures without draining the lake, you put what are called helical, I think they're called helical piers that are in the water, and they go to the ground, and they support the weight of the bridge. And, you know, he would marry that to the, the concrete that is failing on either side. And that was also quoted in the quote that he gave me and I forwarded to the city. So, work's not begun. And it should be, what you should just, I think the main thing is, nor should it be that the taxpayers, how do I say this? Yeah, well, basically, the work's not begun, nor should it start until we know as taxpayers it benefits all Fairfield residents.
So, Tom, I'm going to have, Melanie, do you mind going through the process with the...
I kind of do mind. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry about this, but again...
I just didn't know if you wanted to go through the process and the research that was done.
I'd like to say one thing real quick while she's coming up. And I don't dispute anything you say. I understand your concern and everything. But we have had numerous meetings on this. And I know when it came in front of the Ways and Means Committee alone, we always meet in the conference room. Mm-hmm. And it was so well attended by citizens that we had to move it to this room. That's how many people showed up for it. So it was published. We've had a lot of people come with a lot of concerns. We listened to them all. We kind of came to a consensus with them as to what they wanted at these meetings. And this happened quite a while ago. This has been in the process for quite a while.
Was this?
This wasn't on my agenda tonight, so I didn't bring my information. I'm going to say when was our last Ways and Means Committee, when we sat in the back of the room and reversed the room in here, was probably, I'm going to say 6-7 months ago.
Yeah, we've been...
It was a couple months ago.
I would say
5?
January, February.
Yeah. But again, all those meetings are published.
Yeah.
We don't give a personal notice to each owner
well
around
attended.
a certain area.
I mean, for the 7 or 8 years I've been on council, I can probably count on one hand the time we've had to move a meeting into this room. And that was one of them.
What I'm curious about is why weren't we notified when we were told that they'd keep us posted at least in the direction that it's moving?
It was. We've had many people, a lot of people from Walton were at that meeting.
the Causeway alternative that we are moving forward with, a bridge alternative, so no particular make or model, and then a third option was routing it to Walton Road and closing it down completely. Those estimates at that time had so the bridge replacement alternative had a prefabricated bridge cost of $100,000, which is very close to the numbers that were included in your packet. The decision to move forward with the Causeway was made for a couple reasons. But I would say probably with current costs, if we understand that the estimates that we do, we are not contractors, we're engineers, we base it off of the last project. We don't know, we don't call ideal to know what the current price of concrete is at this very moment. So it's the best estimate. But so if we use the bid price that we have, based off of the pre-construction meeting that we're going to have tomorrow and the contract that we already have signed with Drish Construction, we use that with the numbers that Terry provided. The Causeway and the bridge options are very similar in cost. If you take what was included in the items, the Causeway, and not included in what is included in your packet, so that they're apples to apples, they actually come to be within $2,000 of each other. So very, very close. Taking costs aside, one of the reasons that I have recommended the Causeway is that it has a much longer useful life. I have tried very hard in everything that I do to leave things better for my predecessor. I do not want my predecessor to have to deal with this bridge. I know that that's 50 years from now, or I hope that it's 50 years from now. But I don't want the council to I don't want future councils to look back and say, why do we have to replace this bridge again? A Causeway has a much longer life. Lake might be silted in by then. We might have completely different, it might not be a golf course at that point, but if the city still owns it at that point, at least they won't have to worry about replacing it. And so, although there were some other things discussed, we talked about the weight limit, which the information that we got, the reason why the company might not have any record was because Marcus with French Reniker contacted them, not anyone with the city. So if they were looking up City of Fairfield, that might be the reason why they don't have record of anyone.
I also sent the messages and I never got a response.
Right, and neither did Marcus. And so the information that he got was from their website. And so maybe that's why we're seeing the information that you guys based your decision off of was a lower pounds per square foot, which is what was available off of their website because they weren't responding. But still, even using the larger weight capacity, we're still looking at around the same costs. So if you make the two options apples to apples, the difference is that you have one option with a longer lifespan that requires the lake to be drained, or one with a shorter lifespan. The contractor that is in your packet tonight says they can do it without draining the lake. I guess I would like to talk to him more. I know that it is possible, but I would like to talk to him. Drish feels differently based off of their familiarity with it, that it would need to be drained in order to get good ground in order to pour that concrete on. So
Great.
Not the entire lake is going to be drained, just that portion above the causeway?
It needs, and I don't know the elevations of the bottom enough to know what all needs to be drained.
Okay.
So I cannot give a good information. I mean, it needs to be drained to the point that they can work in that area.
So at this point, do we know, you probably don't know, but maybe they could report back to us on what they anticipate if there's going to be a fish kill or, whatever.
So-
That'd be great to know.
Yeah.
I feel like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nope, go
I just want to say thank you, Melanie. I know that was tough. Because we've been through it, and we also have already decided and voted and have a contract signed, so need to move forward. But I guess if there's any information that Drish could provide in that area, maybe it'd bring some.
So I did talk with the water department today about the process of draining the lake. So when we have drained it in the past, the main area of the fish kill is in the Causeway or in the smaller finger to the east. And so what they did when we were repairing the spillway is they did cover that area in lime to help. I mean, obviously everyone wants the water, that looks better, but the smell is the biggest issue. And so the lime helps with the smell on that issue. To the best of our knowledge, the lake is not stocked by DNR, so we don't have an issue there. I am double checking some things to see if anyone has any other record as far as if there's consequences there, but we've been in contact with DNR regarding any draining of the lake, and there's been no concerns from their standpoint, from the local DNR standpoint. DNR dam safety has also been involved in all of these discussions. And they know that you have to drain the lake in order to do repairs, and nothing's been said either from DNR Dam Safety and the local DNR office.
Great, thank you. Any questions, Council?
I want to say something that I want to dispel an impression that I'm getting from this whole discussion. The city has a riparian right around the whole lake out there. It's reserved in every one of the homeowners' covenants. I subdivided that place with the council approval back in the beginning of the 2000s. We were going to spend $1 million. It was going to take care of problems that had to do with water and sewer systems out there that were not adequate for DNR. So DNR's been part of the reason we have what we have out there right now. DNR was bothered by cabins with varying degrees of septic and with a centralized water system that really wasn't one. So that's what we spent our money on, along with the bridge back at the beginning. We subdivided 36 lots. They've all been sold. It's a beautiful subdivision, but there is no democracy at Walton Lake. You don't get to vote on whether the lake gets reduced, whether the lake gets drained. I'm sorry to say that to you, but that riparian maintenance easement around the whole lake had to be there to satisfy DNR 25 years ago. And it's been there ever since, and DNR expected us over time to abandon the use of that lake as a reserve reservoir behind our other reservoir lakes. I don't know the status either, Melanie, as far as where DNR in Des Moines is now, but I've never seen anything that indicated they consented to us abandoning that lake. But I do know that it's the city's call always as far as maintenance under that riparian easement. And so, I appreciate the residents out there having concerns. They don't want a smelly lake. They don't want a lake that's low. But
one thing, I understand what.
Tom, you'll have to come here, and then this will be the last comment.
Yeah, and Tom.
Riparian rates, and that's fine. That isn't the point. As far as the cost of this, $2,000 wasn't the difference. It came out to about $70,000 less for that bridge installed in 2 months. And I would challenge, the investigation. All I did was, I didn't have to do this, but I contacted the company and I said, well, what's the story? Is it as expensive as they say? And these are the numbers they gave me. And then after I coupled that with the helical idea, that was around $60,000. You didn't have to drain the lake. And being a resident out there, I'd rather you guys at least know the facts and the options to choose the most effective win-win solution. And as far as the lifetime thing, this is an aluminum bridge. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to rust. Even the nuts and bolts are aluminum. And so, you know, I'm washing my hands of it. I did what I could to let people know I'm living out there. I would rather not have my summer ruined. Why start it in June, for God's sakes? At least do it in the fall. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
And what about
No,
the fact
no,
that
this isn't a public hearing now, so we're
can't talk,
we're done.
not gonna hear 'em?
No.
No, it's not a public hearing.
No, it's not a public hearing. Tom had requested to speak, and so he's done that. So council, unless anybody has any comments, let's move on to business. Action item, first action item is consideration of purchase of front-end loader in the streets department. Is Joe here tonight?
Didn't see them.
No.
Streets first.
Oh, okay, great.
I was just told to come up here and talk about the front end loader for the streets department. Basically, we had a choice of 3 different loaders. One of them being John Deere, Cat, and then Komatsu was our 3 choices. We tried reaching out to Volvo. They basically wanted nothing to do with us after we reached out the first time. So we had a discussion within ourselves, and we kind of chose the John Deere loader is what we kind of went with, due to the cost between our current Cat company and John Deere. There was only about $1,500 difference between the two. The Cat, the reason we didn't really want to go with the Cat again is we have 2 other pieces of equipment, which would be our skid steer and our backhoe. So we're not basically kicking all torque out. We just kind of wanted to change who we do service with. We've had issues in the past with Cat, with our backhoe mostly. For that, we also looked at the warranties between the 3. And the Cat ended up only, I think it was like a year warranty, full warranty on it. The John Deere had an 84-month full warranty on it. So, I mean, kind of hands down, I don't know why you wouldn't choose it. And again, previous service issues is what we've had with Cat. So we basically wanted to separate and kind of go with something new to try something else.
Okay. So
Make a motion to purchase or authorize purchase of the front end loader for the streets department.
Second.
Sorry, moved by Flournoy, second by Kness. Any discussion?
I'd like to point out too that the Cat, when we have the Cat equipment serviced, it's time and mileage out of Cedar Rapids, and it gets very expensive just to have them come down and look at it and tell us it needs an O-ring or something like that.
Mhm.
So it does get very expensive.
Okay. Okay, so the motion is to move forward with the John Deere, the price of $171,728. If there's no other discussion, call the roll, please.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
The next action item, consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Ratification, approval, and adoption of settlement and completion agreement and addendum.
Okay. So these items were laid in front of you. They will become public after your action tonight. These are the items that have been discussed in our closed sessions over the last couple weeks, months, years, it feels like. And the documents were settled by both, or were signed by both parties last week. And so, but the attorneys have recommended that the council just ratify those agreements or ratify the decision. And I guess I can say more, but I'd prefer to say more maybe after you make your action item.
And it's what we agreed upon.
I'm trying to think if there were any changes from the last time we met. We met so many times. I think maybe the only thing is perhaps the number of days, which is currently at 3 completion days.
Okay.
So.
And they're still filling it back in and everything prior to cleaning?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that was the last
All right.
last discussion. Yep.
So you want a motion to accept
Yes.
ratification, or accept the settlement and completion agreement? I'll make a
Second.
motion.
Second.
Okay, moved by Toohill, second by Flournoy to approve this agreement and addendum. Any discussion?
And Mayor, I would just like a moment after the motion to explain to the public.
You mean after the vote?
Yes, after the vote, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead and call the roll.
Toohill.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. So with the signature, the intent is that we will see some movement out at the fire station site tomorrow. That then, with the agreement that there's the 3 working days, and part of that foundation will be completed with this agreement. And then there is still those portions of the work that were not part of the original contract that will be change orders under Christner's work. So this agreement just wraps up the old work, and then we'll still have change orders that are going to be part of Christner's work. So hopefully by the end of the week that these agreements are all finalized and that we're moving forward with the rest of the work. So. The change orders with Christner are going to be done as work change directives, since they'll be paid for basically the quantity that they end up removing. And so, if there's 300 square feet of concrete floor to remove that we didn't know about, then that's how much you'll be paid for. If there's less than that, they'll be paid for less. And so we'll authorize them to begin removing that, and then we'll authorize that payment once we know exactly how much there is. So, but hopefully tomorrow we see some vehicles on site. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie.
Next is a resolution, consideration of support of Grow Fairfield's workforce housing tax credit application to build 5 single-family homes. Want to say anything, Ed? Just real quick.
Yes, real quick. Thanks, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The resolution is basically a show of support and also contribution to the project. And the way that that's handled is that the tax abatement on 3 of the units, so the 5 homes that are in there, 3 of them will be on the Logan lots for next year, and these will be the same project we're doing this year with the homes for Iowa. So they would be eligible for tax abatement. The other 2 homes will be in the new Sunrise Trail subdivision, which will not be available for tax credit because of the usage of TIF. But the total amount of value for tax abatement for the 3 units would be $16,488, averaged over 5 units, that's $3,298. $1,000 in support is all that's required. So that will be taken care of. So the application is due on June 10th. We're making good progress on that. And this resolution would be a big part towards supporting that from the city side.
Okay. Thank you for that little more detailed explanation. Council?
Move to approve.
Moved by Kness.
Second.
Second by Toohill. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Kness.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Thank you. That was approved unanimously to support Grow Fairfield's workforce housing tax credit application. Thank you for all your work on that, Ed.
Mayor, one thing, we have a house being delivered in 2 weeks on 7th Street, so.
Yay.
Is that May 29?
May 20th, the week of May 26th.
Okay.
I like to say too, I live over in that area, down past that area there, but I've seen numerous cars stop and look at the signs.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure you have.
I see people walking along the foundations of them,
Yep.
like inside the yellow. I'm like, ugh,
Yep.
that doesn't seem like a good idea.
But there's a lot of interest or
Yeah.
excitement about them, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
It's great. Okay, Ordinance 1261, this is a second reading, consideration of amendment to penalty section for the building maintenance code. This is increasing the fines to be more consistent with state code, I believe, from a minimum of $105 up to $855. And with that, I'll open a public hearing. Is anybody that want to speak to this particular Ordinance 1261, the second reading? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and council can take it from there.
Make a motion to move it from second to third.
Moved by Toohill,
Second.
second by Flournoy. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Toohill.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Thank you, that was approved unanimously. So we will have the third and final reading next meeting. Next ordinance, consideration of alternative enforcement of procedures and penalties for nuisance and housing safety enforcement. This is a first reading. And basically, John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I read this, this is so that people can deposit their penalties at the drop box at the law center, and they have 30 days to do that.
Right.
And let me just read this other part. If the recipient of the notice of violation does not either pay the fine by the due date stated in the notice or request the issuance of a city citation within 30 days of issuance of the notice of violation, it shall be deemed an admission of liability, and the city may use alternative collection methods against the owner defendant, including but not limited to the State of Iowa Offset Program, to collect unpaid citations and or certify the penalty to the Jefferson County Auditor and or Treasurer for an assessment and collection as taxes. So with that, I'll open a public hearing to see if anybody wants to speak on this particular topic. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask the council your pleasure.
And move to approve.
Moved by Kness.
Second.
Second by Toohill. Any further discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Kness.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Okay, that was approved unanimously to move that ordinance from the first to the second reading regarding penalties for nuisance and housing safety enforcement. Next ordinance, consideration of amendment to chapters 9.76, 10.24, and 11.08, grass and vegetation. This is a first reading. Melanie, did you want to say anything about this particular ordinance?
Do you want me to?
Jason, can you click on those so I can see it bigger than on my phone, please?
Okay. So we discussed the draft of this at the last meeting, a few things. I'll go through it as quickly as I can. Section 3 of the ordinance, letters A and C are what's in the existing code. I just made it into bullet points so they're easier to reference. Item B is adding a definition in there to help in later sections. Section 4 of the ordinance is defining the garden. Gardening, we already had that in general in there, but defined it better with this amendment. Terry had asked about better defining the borders, and so actually we just took that out. We just, some other cities said that use the words well-defined location. So what it's listed in here is intentionally maintained in a well-defined location is the definition of garden. Jason, if you want to click on the ordinance, actually. Thank you. And then the other thing, and the mayor and I talked about this, is Maintenance of pre-annuals. A lot of people don't necessarily cut like their ornamental grasses. And so I did some research on pollinator-friendly type ordinances, and because we do want to be cognizant of that, but yet we don't want people to leave their dead stuff there all the time. So Part B says that vegetable and flower gardens need to be maintained according to recognized practices during the growing seasons. Annuals need to be removed prior to the next growing season, and pre-annuals need to be trimmed at least once per calendar year. So if you're a person who wants to be good to the pollinators, you can trim them after May. If you don't care, you can trim them in March. So, you know, we don't care when you do it, just do it once so that it doesn't become a fire hazard because you've never trimmed your pampas grass. So. And then the rest, again, is just referring to different sections of the code saying, yep, you can have gardens, they just still can't block traffic. We're happy with gardens, we're a garden-friendly city, you just still can't block traffic. Section 5 is a repealer. Section 6 is probably the main change of this ordinance. The 976030 is what we talked about, is instead of sending notice to the landowner, that the notice is posted to the owner, agent, or occupants of all lands abutting city streets or alleys. And then we're leaving the 5-day notice, which is in Part B. 976040 assessment is, again, pretty much what was there before, just making it bulleted to be easier to reference. Section 7 of the ordinance, 2024-010, littering prohibited, is mainly stuff that we already had in our code, but defining it a little bit better and clarifying that you cannot put grass clippings into the street. So that is, it kind of said it already in the code, but now it very clearly says it, except for unless it's in a yard waste pickup bag. So, so that is section 7. Section 8, in our right-of-way ordinance with our landscaping, we had previously treated shrubs in the same manner as trees, giving a property owner 3 letters in order to remove them. The section 8 and 9 move that to a 30-day notice, giving them the opportunity to move it or request an extension. We typically hit the bushes in the spring and in the fall so that property owners can move things. And then allowing Public Works Department to remove those if they are a hazard. Still, the trees still have the 3 notices and the hearing in front of City Council. We didn't remove any of that. It just took shrubs away. So there's a lot of changes, but really, I would say the most substantial is notifying the occupant of the property, and probably then handling shrubs more like grass rather than the trees. And trying to be as garden friendly as possible.
Do we have an effective way to, so I don't see it often in residential, but out in an industrial park yesterday or over the weekend, I saw that they just left a bunch of grass clippings out in the street, which is very rare for me to see for a commercial person. Is there anything we can do do we have like a list of who the commercial or like a business listing?
That would clean it up?
No, just so that we can notify, so that we can notify them that this has gone into effect when it does.
So the policy that I've attached to this is that we will, even though we took it out of the code, is we will still continue to publish a courtesy notice in the paper that says you need to do this. We could certainly add to that courtesy well, it actually does say that grass clippings are not permitted.
Right.
But so we will continue to put that in there. And then we also will put it, it's normally in the mailings. I would say we will probably, even though I don't want to put it, I will probably put it on Facebook when this goes through.
Yeah.
To notify people. The other thing that our policy says that is in commercial areas, because we know that a lot of times that's not going to be, it might not be someone who can necessarily do something about the property. You know, if it's a tenant, if it's a residential, more than likely it's either the tenant or the landlord or somebody who can mow the yard. In a commercial property, it might not be someone who even knows where the mower is. So in a commercial property, if we can't get a hold of somebody and hand them the notice that, hey, you need to get your grass clippings out of the street or you need to mow your yard, we will send them a letter.
Okay.
That's going to be our policy. Again, the policy is different than code, but that's how we intend to handle commercial and industrial stuff compared to residential.
Okay.
Whereas residential, we will do the door tags.
Thanks.
Okay. Did I open a public hearing on this one? No.
I don't
Okay.
think so.
I will open a public hearing regarding this ordinance, grass and vegetation. Does anyone want to speak to that? Guess not. So I'll close the public hearing. Council, you want to move this from the first to the second?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to move this ordinance from the first to the second reading.
Moved by Flournoy.
And I'll second.
Second by Ham. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Thank you.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Thank you. That's moved unanimously to the second reading on the grass and vegetation amendments. Next ordinance, consideration of amendment to Chapter 7.04 regarding solid waste collection. This is moving the fees to $22.33 a month. And
Bin size.
bin size, and also just, I was noticing the compost bins. And maybe that's already been there, but I just wanted to highlight that if you have a compost bin, you're not supposed to put cooked food scraps of any kind or type in those compost bins. No manures, lake weeds, fish meat, or other animal products.
It's a compost bin.
Right?
I mean, I thought you dealt with compost bins on your own. Do we even? I don't
How does
feel
that
like we
affect
have
waste
that.
management? They don't.
I've never seen
Well,
a compost
it's-
bin on a street.
Well,
Ever. But
you can have it, but you gotta have it in your backyard primarily.
yeah,
Oh.
you compost it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, I just,
I got you.
I think it's just the same code section. It has nothing to do with waste.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right, but I just wanted to point that out, just so people knew. So with that, I'll open a public hearing again on the solid waste collection. And if nobody wants to speak to that, I'll close the public hearing and council take it away.
Make the motion to move the ordinance concerning solid waste collection from the first to the second reading.
Okay, moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Toohill. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Thank you. Last ordinance, first reading, consideration amendments to 7.06. This is recycling. And I'll open the public hearing for that. Anybody wants to talk about recycling? Not, I will close the public hearing on that one. And council.
I'd move to approve from first to second reading.
Okay,
Second.
moved by Kness, second by Flournoy. Any further discussion? And please call the roll.
Kness.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Thank you. Under the mayor's report, we discussed in the work session about the right-of-way ordinance and having safety committee re-look at that since it's been a few years and there might be some changes and it was never formally published. And so let's look at some of those issues. So if there could be a motion to move the right-of-way ordinance to the safety committee.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kness, second by Flournoy. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign? Okay, great, thank you. Two things. Oh gosh. Now where is it? I took a picture. This is the Fairfield Police Department posted, and I wanted to read this because it's good. It is National Police Week for 2025. Each May, we join communities across the country in recognizing National Police Week, a time to honor the law enforcement officers who have given their lives in the line of duty and to show support for those who continue to serve. Police Week was established in 1962 when President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation designating May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week surrounding it as National Police Week. Since then, it has grown into a nationwide tribute to the bravery, dedication, and sacrifice of law enforcement personnel. This year's theme, Committed to Serve Together, reminds us of the importance of unity and partnership in keeping our communities safe. Whether it's on patrol, during emergencies, or through community outreach, the officers of the Fairfield Police Department work every day with integrity and in heart. We take this week to stand with our officers, honor the fallen, support the serving, and thank the families who stand behind every badge. So, thank you, Chief. On behalf of the community, please thank all your officers.
Thank you, Mary.
And,
Mayor, and will do.
and their families. And then this morning, I visited Parkview Care Center. It is National Skilled Nursing Care Week, and I read a proclamation out there today, so I wanted to share that. Whereas the citizens of Fairfield area communities who now reside in nursing homes and assisted living facilities have contributed immeasurably to the heritage, growth, and success of our community. And whereas staff at our nursing care centers work tirelessly, doing the important work of caring for our loved ones every day, and whereas nursing homes across the nation are holding events in the observance of National Skilled Nursing Care Week, guided by this year's theme of Tapestry of Life that will honor the collaborative commitment of skilled nursing care facilities and their staff in providing compassionate care to their residents. And whereas the National Skilled Nursing Care Week takes place May 11th through the 17th, 2025, now therefore I, Connie Boyer, Mayor of the City of Fairfield, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 11th through the 17th, 2025 as Skilled Nursing Care Week in Fairfield. And I encourage all citizens to recognize and support Fairfield nursing homes and assisted living staff in whatever way they can. Thank you. City Attorney report?
Yeah, just a couple things. I've been keeping track of an ongoing argument that's working its way up to the Supreme Court with a sheriff up in Decorah area that is having a problem expressing himself. He sent a notice to area law enforcement to be particularly cautious about some things that were going on with a piece of legislation that the governor and the legislature wanted to emphasize about ICE enforcement. That turned into something where the sheriff characterized it as thought control, and that he should be able to tell other people in his profession what they should look for as far as this. The governor then had the Attorney General charge the sheriff of Poweshiek County with obstructing immigration statutes that are designed to help ICE when they're validly set up to be enforced. The sheriff took the position that his fellow law enforcement officers should look at this from the standpoint of whether there is a valid warrant, which what I'm catching as far as news all over the country is that there are hundreds of invalid warrant situations where people are just being plucked. That's not anything to do with the validity of a sheriff's duties to uphold the Iowa Constitution and to validly honor warrants. But this thing's probably going to be in the Supreme Court pretty soon. We have a community here with a lot of people that are subject to different kinds of visas and other things that could be enforced by ICE. It isn't visiting us right now, but I think it's something that we keep our eye on, and I think the Iowa Supreme Court will have something to say about it eventually, as far as I think they'll agree with the sheriff. He should look at it cautiously. Other than that, and my personal burn about it, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something called the Felger Fund. Rambo's a direct derivative of the Felger Fund. The Felger Fund was started by a retired police officer, Ed Felger. We've talked about it sometimes in the past. He started out with enough money to fund at least a couple of dogs and a couple of trainees to go with the dogs. The officer that was here tonight has had the benefit of the Felger Fund training, and Dave, I believe that the cost for that was around $16,000 or something like that. Is that right?
For the dog and training, yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that's coming up, though, is we've got an SUV that's been outfitted because it's a new SUV with equipment that benefits this dog. And the Felger Fund was designed to do some things as far as accessorizing the way we service that animal. I think at the time Ed set this up a decade ago, we didn't have any idea that some of the things are going to be available to operate with the dog are there. But for instance, the dog cage that goes into the new SUV is about a $5,000 cage. It's on a tray. The tray can be electronically controlled so that it comes out the back end of the SUV, kind of on motorized rollers. That's an extra $2,000 or $3,000. It has a light system and a computer tracking system for the dog. I don't know if the dog's got a chip in it or not, but there is a way to track the dog that I think is pretty sophisticated. Anyway, the long and short of this is we got an invoice for over $35,000 for the accessorizing in the SUV. That's probably about, I would say at least 6 times what Ed Felger ever imagined. And Ed was alive when he set this up, and he got to meet the first dog that was trained, and there were pictures in the paper, and it was a great thing. Other people in the community have donated to the Felger Fund, and I think as of right now, we've got about $40,000 in the fund. What has sort of come up on this, and I know one of the people that's a regular donor asked, is the fund going to go out of existence? I want to suggest that it shouldn't, and Dave and I have talked about this, and I've also talked to the Greater Jefferson County Foundation that administers the fund, and my suggestion is that the foundation will probably pay about half of this bill. That's $17,000 plus. That's the equivalent of what it takes to train another officer and another dog going forward. But then also that we turn around and the city ask the Greater Jefferson County Foundation, which just happens to be getting another $130,000 from the Felger estate, to request from the Greater Jefferson County Foundation general grants the rest of this accessorizing expense. So we'd be approaching them on our own to pay for this without totally depleting the Felger Fund. We'll have enough at least for another dog personnel training as well as another dog, at least, even if nobody ever gives another dime to it. So you pretty much agree with that approach, don't you, Dave?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I know that the treasurer for the Greater Jefferson County Foundation, they're going to have a meeting in the next 10 days or so, is also the treasurer of one of the other foundations that will be receiving. In fact, he's the treasurer for all of them, I think. He's the treasurer for the Greater Jefferson County Foundation also. So we're going to try to do this with the idea that we keep that fund in place for another generation of animal and officer if we can. Unless there's some hesitance on us approaching it that way. I'm not trying to tell Ways and Means what to do. I'm not trying to tell the administration what to do. But I think it's a way to keep that fund in place the way it was intended. And there are some specific gift documents that are fairly carefully worded as far as what it can fund. And we've had some discussions with the Sheriff's Department before. And part of the reason that we're training and introducing out here is that one of the trained officers and dogs went across the hallway out at the law center to the Sheriff's Department, which isn't part of what the Felger Fund finances. So at this point, there'll be 2 dogs, there'll be 2 trained officers out there for a while. That's okay, that's great to be well-equipped, so to speak, but other than that, unless the council has some objection to us approaching it this way, probably the police department will make an application to the Greater Jefferson County Foundation for money specifically to offset or match what is coming from the Felger Fund, $17,000 that we're going to suggest at the foundation meeting. Yeah.
Not opposed to any of this, but my only concern is that the 17 is, although great, we spent $50,000 on the vehicle and a $35,000 outfit it, so $85,000 for the vehicle, which was not the $75,000 that we allocated in lost funds for a new squad car, which we also bought. So that was an additional $85,000 for the vehicle itself. Although 17 is great, it doesn't put a very big dent into the total cost of, and you get the 16 for the dog and the training too, so you're at about 101,000. Again, I'm not opposed to any. I'm a big supporter of having it, but we may have to look at other ways of funding here than just that. So we didn't budget for any of that. We budgeted for 1 new squad car, which we purchased, but that 50 for the vehicle and the 35 to outfit it was in addition to that.
Yeah, Dave, I'm correct, aren't I, that the last time we outfitted an SUV for the dog, it probably accessorized cost of about 10 grand instead of 35?
Yes, sir. That's what we're up against now with every squad car is like anything, everything goes up.
Very expensive. Yeah.
And it went from 10,000 to about 30 to 40,000 just for the equipment in the squad car.
Yeah, so I appreciate what you're saying, Tom. I just, before we have this discussion with the full foundation board, I want to be sure it's okay with the council to go ahead and approach it that way.
Dave, do you feel like you have the funds in your budget to cover the cost of the extra squad car?
It's going to be tight. The only reason it is going to be tight is the squad we had damaged with head-on collision in January is being replaced, and although we got the insurance back, it still came out of the budget we weren't planning on.
Right.
I think we
and
have.
when you get revenue, it doesn't offset your budget for city government. I mean, I assume it's the same way as county.
And I know
right?
you guys and gals will give us credit at the end of the year if we have to have an amendment. But yeah, that's and it's tough for us because K-9's always been private donation. We haven't had to, but John and I both were surprised. We know it's going up, and it was quite a bit more this year.
I wasn't taking into account either the one that was totaled because we
I didn't.
It cost
think
us
about that either.
$50,000 to replace that car. They took all the equipment out of the totaled one and put it into the new ones, which saved us money.
There you
So
go.
that was another $9,000 to do that. So it was $59,000 to do that, and I think insurance paid us $34,000. So we're $25,000 short on that too. So that's in addition to the $100,000. It was
So you're saying we
it was
replaced
59.
two vehicle?
No, it was $50,000 to buy the vehicle. The new vehicle was $50,000, $9,000
That we
to
budgeted
replace.
for out of last.
No, this was for the one that was totaled,
Okay.
not the new vehicle. The new vehicle is still a separate one yet.
Okay.
So the one that was totaled will replace. We bought a $50,000 vehicle, $9,000 to move the equipment over, so we were $59,000 into it, and we received $35,000 in insurance payment for it. So we were $25,000 short, basically, on that. We purchased a new vehicle. We purchased a new vehicle for, I'm going to say $54,000, and spent around $23,000 to outfit that one, which was really close to the $75,000 we budgeted there. And then we purchased the one for the K9 for $50,000 and spent $35,000 outfitting that one. So that $85,000 wasn't accounted for
That
anymore.
wasn't budgeted at all.
Mhm.
That wasn't budgeted at all.
No. So 3 vehicles have entered one was totaled, and we replaced that one, bought the new squad vehicle that we had budgeted for, and then bought the additional K9 unit.
So it's the K9 unit plus the loss we took on the total vehicle because we didn't get 100% replacement value.
Right.
Do we need a better insurance company?
It's a government insurance company.
Yes.
Charges a lot, but man, they try to save every penny. I've been 8,000 phone calls with them.
Is this something Ways and Means want to discuss further?
Not at all.
Okay, just checking.
I mean,
Do we want
if
to,
you
or
think
should
you-
we? That's
At
two
this
different
point, it's
questions.
just
it's a
Just
point,
asking.
yeah. But if you think you can cover it in your budget and don't have to get a budget amendment for it, like,
We should be good.
Okay.
I'm good with that. But don't spend any more money.
Administrator
Yeah.
Reiner is stressing out right now and looking at me like, are you sure? It's going to be close.
Wrap the squad cars in bubble wrap.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Okay.
The good news is we have one at Vaughn's and it's all under warranty, and so we haven't had to pay a nickel.
Okay, Steve. Looks like John has another thing.
Oh, no,
One more thing?
only, you had a good discussion earlier about open meetings. I don't think there's anything in the stuff that's new about the penalties and so forth that really is gonna catch us. We have had a more open policy since '90, when we've got a letter that supports our open meeting information about our committees. That's not required in anything going back that far, but we've always been that open. Other than that, when we do a closed session and so forth, I know our clerk always calls to make sure that we've got the exceptions sections out of our state code. And so I don't think there's any exposure to us as far as the way we do either our open meetings, our committee meetings, or the situations with our records. I think we're fully compliant. So other than that,
Thank you.
that's all I've got.
Committee and board reports. We don't have anything listed here, so let's move on to administrator and department reports.
I wanted to say that the house on 405 South D Street bit the dust. The contractors actually told me that they touched the front porch with the piece of equipment and it just folded in on itself. It was an extremely dangerous structure, so happy to finally get that.
I have a
out
couple
from the-
pictures of that, Melanie. Sorry.
No, it's fine, but so we will discuss on maybe what money we haven't received of assessing the property tax or the property owner. Then, once again, the warmer it gets, the more people start calling us for lawn mowing and trash pickup and all sorts of things. So I want to remind everybody, as the grass is growing, that help your neighbors mow if you can, and we'll be driving around having conversations with people to make sure that they're maintaining their lawns. And then they will be opening up the outdoor pool. They're getting the outdoor pool ready for the summer. I think that opens up Memorial Day weekend, I believe. So,
Doug, do you think it's that people just don't know who to contact to ask for mowing help? That we could put together some literature for them?
yeah, there's I'm actually having some discussions with some volunteer groups, and I don't know how deep their commitment levels are.
Right.
But there are some people that would like to go around, and if I can get that information together, but yeah, of who we might be able to have them get a hold of, because they may not have a mower, or it's broken, or
Right.
Melanie's
Yeah.
coming up to have a conversation.
So with our contractor registration list, we typically have not required mowing services to provide the insurance and bond, because they're not digging anything. It would be the people that are doing more of a landscaping, or if they're planting trees, that they would require the insurance. But if you're a high school kid and you don't mind putting your name and your number on there, there's also a spot on the contractor registration form that says type of work. And so if you want to say that I'm only doing lawns in the southwest part of town because I don't have my driver, well, don't tell us this much information, but because you don't have your driver's license and you're only going so far that you can push your push mower.
Yeah.
Put that on our registration, and then we can add it to our list, and that is a way that we can get your information for those kids that are just call here, talk to the planning and zoning to get that contractor registration form, or it is also online. Search contractor registration and turn that in, and we'll get it on our list.
Okay. If you need help with that, let me know.
If you go around town, we have a lot of lawns that need mowed right now.
I've seen that.
And we don't have no mow May. We do not have that. So it's time to mow the lawns. Okay, looks like Melanie doesn't have anything. And so I'm just going to point out that our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 27th, because of the holiday weekend. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill.
Second.
Second by Kness. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.